Good morning, sixth graders. Today what we're going to do is look at subtracting integers using counters. So yesterday we worked on adding integers using counters, and when we did that we worked on adding them using zero pairs. We said a zero pair consists of one positive integer and one negative integer. So we knew that, we talked about yesterday that positive 1 plus negative 1 equals 0. Well, when you take out your zero pairs when you're adding integers, when you take them out, whatever you're left with is going to be your answer. So I started off here with negative 5 yesterday, so I had negative 5 counters, and then I added positive 4 to that. Okay, so then what I did is I got rid of my zero pairs. So I got rid of those 4 zero pairs and I was left with one negative. So we would say that negative 5 plus positive 4 equals negative 1. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about how to subtract integers using counters. Now, there's two different ways to subtract integers using counters, and we're going to talk about both of them today. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just talk to you a little bit about talking about subtraction using jumps in the number line. So we already did this a couple of days ago. So I taught you guys that you started at 3. So if you started at 3 and you did 3 minus 5, that's just like going to the left on the number line 5 spots. So I'd go left 5 spots and I end up at negative 2. So we would say that 3 minus 5 equals negative 2 here. Okay, but what about subtracting a negative number from a positive number? So for example, I'm at positive 3 and I'm subtracting a negative 5. Well, if I'm subtracting a positive 5, I'm moving left on the number line. So if I'm subtracting a negative number, what I'm actually doing is moving to the right on the number line. So I'm going to start at my 3, and instead of subtracting a regular positive and going backwards, I'm actually going to go forward. So I'm going to go forward 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots. So we would say that positive 3 minus a negative 5 equals a positive 8. Okay? So you can also model subtraction of negative numbers using counters. So here's my example. Negative 5 minus a negative 3. So I have minus 5 minus a negative 3. All I'm doing is just taking things away. So if I'm taking away negative 3, I'm just going to cross off 3 negatives here. So I would say that negative 5 minus a negative 3 is whatever I have left. So I actually have left here, I have negative 2 counters. So we would say that negative 5 minus a negative 3 equals negative 2. It works the same here for this bottom one. So if I have negative 6 and I'm subtracting negative 4. So I'm going to cross off 4 of my negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4. What I'm left with is 2 negatives. So we would say that negative 6 minus 4 equals negative 2. Okay? Well, this is fine and dandy when you are subtracting two numbers that have the same sign. See how I have a negative and a negative and a negative and a negative? This works, just taking things away. But it doesn't work as easy when you have maybe a positive and a negative and you're subtracting them, or a negative and a positive and you're subtracting them. So I'm going to show you how that works on using counters on this page. Okay, so it says, what about subtracting numbers with opposite signs? Well, here I have the problem. My first one is negative 5 minus positive 3. So here I started off with my negative 5. Well, I need to take away 3 positives. But if you look here, I have no positives to take away. So what I'm going to actually do in order to help me take away 3 positives is I'm going to create 0 pairs. So if you remember, 1 positive and 1 negative made a 0 pair yesterday. So I'm going to make 3 0 pairs. Okay, and there's my 3 0 pairs. So I've got 1, 2, 3 0 pairs. Okay, now if I look here, after I created my 0 pairs, what I've done is I now have 3 positives that I can take away. So if I take away my 3 positives, 1, 2, 3 positives, I'm left with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 negatives. So we would say that negative 5 minus a positive 3 is a negative 8, okay? So this is how it works on the next one. So here I have negative 6 minus 2. So if I look here, I started off with my 6 negatives. I don't have 2 positives that I can take away. I can't just take away 2 negatives because it's not minus and negative 2, it's minus and positive 2. So I'm going to create those 0 pairs again. So I have my 0 pairs, I have 2 positives that I have to take away. So I'm going to create 2 0 pairs. So here's my 2 0 pairs that I've created. Okay, so what I have now is I've got my 2 0 pairs, and I now have 2 positives that I can take away. So if I take away 1, 2 positives, I'm left with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 negatives. So my answer, once again, is going to be negative 8. So we would say that negative 6 minus a positive 2 is a negative 8. Okay? Now, it works the same way as if you were taking away a negative from a positive. Okay? So I'm taking positive 5 minus a negative 2. Okay? So if I have here my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 positives, I need to take away 2 negatives. So I don't have any 2 negatives to take away here, so I have to create 2 0 pairs to create those negatives that I can take away. So if I create those 0 pairs, I have now 7 positives and 2 negatives. Okay, so now I can go through and take away my 2 negatives, and now what I'm left with are just 7 positives. So we would say that positive 5 minus a negative 2 is positive 7. Okay, so that's how you're going to subtract integers using counters. Okay, remember, a red one is going to equal positive, a yellow is going to equal negative. Okay, so I'm going to continue on to the next page. You can also think about subtraction as the distance between 2 points on a number line. So if I have here negative 5 minus a negative 2, I could think of this. If I go here, negative 5 minus a negative 2, so if I go 2 spots, I gotta grab this. Oh, I don't want it that big. So if I grab this here and move it over here, negative 2 spots away. So if I go 2 spots, so I would say that negative 5 minus a negative 2, I count the spaces. I've got 1, 2, 3 spots. So we would say that that is negative 3 for my answer. And the way it works the same as here. So if I have positive 5 and I'm at negative 4, so I'm going to take this over here and drag it to my negative 4 spot. And if I look here and count my spaces and the distance between these 2 points, I count this as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we would say that negative 5 or positive 5 minus a negative 4 equals positive 9. Okay? So you probably noticed that when you subtract a negative number, all we're doing is moving to the right on the number line, which is the same as adding a positive number. So if you're subtracting a negative, you're just moving to the right. You're moving in the opposite direction. So in other words, we're replacing the minus a negative with plus a positive. So for example, negative 2 minus a negative 1, that can be written as negative 2 plus 1, which we know, based on what we learned yesterday, negative 2 plus 1 is going to equal negative 1. So we would say that negative 2 minus a negative 1 equals negative 1, okay? Or 24 minus a negative 5 can be written as 24 plus 5. And we know that 24 plus 5 equals 29. So anytime you have minus a negative number, you will change it to plus a positive number. So using that strategy, how would we rewrite these problems? So if I have here 6 minus a negative 6, I would rewrite this as 6 plus 6. Okay? Negative 10 minus a negative 5 would be written as negative 10 plus 5. And then 7 minus a negative 7 is going to be written as 7 plus 7. Okay, and these are pretty easy problems to do now. We know that 6 plus 6 equals 12. We know that negative 10 plus 5, based on what we learned yesterday, that's going to be negative 5. And then 7 plus 7 we know is 14. So when you do subtraction of integers, it's important to think about them as movements on the number line or using counters. You can also rewrite the problems that are minus and negative as plus a positive. So here are some examples from your assignment today. Here's some examples from your assignment. So today on your assignment, I'm going to give you some counters that look like this. You're going to have to write a problem based on this, okay? So I look here and I notice that I actually have, I'm going to write this down here. I actually have here, I started off with 5 negative counters. So my problem's going to start off with negative 5. And then I take away 2 counters. So I minus 2. I take away 2 negative counters, and we would say that my answer is negative 3, because I'm left with negative 3, okay? So on your assignment, you're gonna have some problems that look like that, and you're going to have to just write the subtraction problem and tell me what it equals. You're also today on your assignment, you'll give something that looks like this. You're at negative 3 on the number line, and you jump 2 places to the left. You need to write a subtraction problem for that. So I start at negative 3. I jump 2 places to the left. So if I jump 2 places to the left, I go back 1, 2 spots. So I would say that my problem is negative 3 minus 2, and then that equals negative 5. So that's what you would write on your assignment. Okay? And then today what you're also going to be doing is you're going to have to find the distance between 2 numbers. So I have to find the distance between 4 and negative 2. So I'm going to make my number line here. Take my number line and put my positive 4. I'm going to put a dot there. And then I now need to figure out the distance between positive 4 and negative 2. So now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go negative 2 here. I can get my thing to move. And it doesn't want to move with me here this morning. So I go negative 2, so I count my spaces. The distance between them is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces between them. So we would say that the distance between positive 4 and negative 2 is 6. So my subtraction sentence is going to be that positive 4 minus a negative 2 equals 6. Okay? So you'll have to do a couple of problems like that on your assignment. So as always, if you have questions on this, please feel free to email me or call me or send me a text so I can help you out with it. Have a great day.